here had bubbles after 3? Say bubbles, 1, 2, 3.
Bubbles.
Okay. After 3, those who had soft drinks, say soft drink, 1, 2, 3.
Soft drink.
Soft drinks.
You see, this highlights the problem with data. Can you rely on its veracity? It's a problem, and I think we'll be having some more questions later to see just how accurate that data was. But it's a great pleasure to be here again in this fabulous venue. One more question for the audience while we're here, so I've got you. What happened on this day in this town 18 years ago to the day? Nothing's changed then in 18 years? That's good. I like consistency and reliability, very good. Indeed, in Trafalgar Square, just before 1 p.m, we had the longest envelope opening in history, and we heard that word, London. Now, no matter what we achieved in that golden summer of sport and what we achieved since, truly, if we grip the opportunity from open banking, from open finance, to finance everywhere for everyone, the enabling, the empowering, the emancipating that will bring will be multiples, even multiples of what we achieved at London 2012. That's the mission, that's the purpose, that's why we're all here. We have, in a Dickensian way in the room, the ghost of open banking trustee past. We have open banking trustee present. And who knows, ladies and gentlemen, Helen, perhaps in the room tonight, we have open banking trustee yet to come. So, it's fabulous to introduce Fireside Chat with the person who is at the very epicenter, the flame at the centre of our fire. Please give a massive welcome to the current trustee, Marion King.
Thank you.
So, the day job, plenty going on. Talk us through, if even there is something which could be described as a typical day.
Gosh, no, there isn't a typical day right now because there's just so much change. But I guess I could break it into 3 parts. As trustee, a priority of mine, a key priority is to protect the order. Make sure that what we've built, what we've done, what the banks have done, what CMA9 have done, what CMA have done, is maintained, is monitored, and continues to provide a quality level of service. So make sure that what we've done doesn't lose momentum and doesn't weaken in any way. Second priority is running the business. I don't do that. Hank, who's here, does that together with some of his team. Hank, team are dotted around as well, to ensure that the business runs effectively, efficiently. Heather is here, who's responsible for making sure it works every day and that products continue to improve and learn. So running the business. And then the third piece is that acronym, which has become a word in its own right, which is JROC. And we had the JROC roadmap in effect, delivered in the early spring, and now we're in implementation mode. So there are 6 work streams. Open banking runs 3 of those 6 and supports and feeds into the other 3. And we can talk about that probably a bit later on. So we've repurposed people, so to speak. We've trained people, we brought people in to make sure that we can line up under these programs of work and are treating it with the rigor of any central infrastructure program, a program of delivery with aggressive timelines, standards that have to be met, and huge amount of collaboration, talking, and working across the whole ecosystem. So it's not just banks, it's third-party providers, it's charities, it's consumer groups, it's SME groups, to ensure that we get this right.
It's an incredibly exciting time. What was it particularly that appealed to you in taking on this challenge?
Because it's at a pivotal stage, and for me, looking at open banking really being about using the faster payments rails to open up payments, provide competitive, innovative products. For me, it was unfinished business, Chris.
Yeah.
You know, I ran VocaLink from, 1992 to 2011 and launched faster payments. You know, what happened on my birthday, how many years ago was that now? About 15 years ago, as we launched it on my birthday in 2008. So faster payments, you know, is 15 years old. So it's unfinished business now, Chris. We need to do more with it. We need to make interbank payments a key part of a data sharing economy to enable financial health to be in the control of consumers and businesses.
And you've been in the role a little while now. What surprised you being in role from being outside and coming right into the midst of it? What surprised you? What eyebrow raising moments have you had that you're prepared to share with us?
Yeah, I'm glad you put that last sentence in. I've been in role, 5-6 months. I think the first thing that has surprised me, and I say this with all honesty and candour, is the level of expertise and deep understanding of what we're doing within the open banking team, within the CMA9, and within the regulators as we all learn together. This isn't sort of best efforts work. This is a really focused, highly motivated opportunity, and it's highly motivated because individuals understand the potential that we haven't unlocked as an economy, and I mean that sincerely. The other thing that's made me gasp a couple of times is the complexity of the regulatory arena. A consortium of regulators is interesting. We're doing a pretty good job, but it's about navigating that. It's about navigating a regulatory framework that needs to be there, a trust framework that needs to be there, and then how we move that into a sustainable, open finance ecosystem that works for all, because there's some big gaps. And that has surprised me that there are still big gaps, I think. But I'm excited by that, because we can draw upon the skills in this room and elsewhere to bring them to life. So complexity, technical complexity, stakeholder complexity, regulatory complexity, but you know what? This one has a real sense of we can do this, and that's really exciting.
Bless you. Would you like to have a stab at a collective noun for a group of regulators? We'll move on now. We can come back to that. Our ideas from the audience are also welcome during drinks. I think
I'll message you on that.
Heather will provide a prize for the best collective noun for that. It's good to have competition. So, short and medium term, the path forward for the organisation, for the technology. Talk us through that.
What we have to do now is the identified programs of work that's in the JROC report. Payments have to be ubiquitous. They have to work for all. We have to have common standards. We have to have certainty and trust. So levelling up, it's called. This is about expanding open banking. It's about making sure we get consistency. And there are customers in the audience where we've seen inconsistency. Consistency across the CMA9 in terms of availability, access and performance. We need to see this spread across a wider economy with more participants engaged. We need to make sure our APIs work and do the things we want to do, and there's the opportunity for what we call premium APIs and how different business models can evolve from that. So there's a lot of work to do in making this economy-wide and ubiquitous. We also are looking at and working on consumer protection You know, it's one of those things that's unfinished business as well, in that we launched real-time interbank payments. Never even imagined that it would be used for consumer everyday payments. It was for transferring between banks. It was for you to move from one account to another. It wasn't envisaged in 2008 that it would be used for point of sale and online payments. And therefore, we don't have the consumer protections in place for when a payment goes wrong. Card schemes have chargebacks, they have guarantees, etc. We don't have that, and we need it. And it's not beyond the art of the possible. It just isn't, but we just need to get that in place and make sure that it works. And then there is the whole piece around fraud, exchange of data. Fraud is epidemic. It's far worse than the numbers we see, because so many people who are scammed don't declare it because their life's been ruined and they're terribly embarrassed. How horrendous is that? So there has to be more work that's done around fraud protection. But you know what the essence of it, Chris, is exchange of data. You know? So it's kind of getting every company involved in financial services used to exchanging data. You know, it's not about exchanging confidential, commercially sensitive data. It's about exchanging structured, anonymized data that enables us to make better decisions and provide better services to our customers. So a lot to do in that arena.
Completely. I think the point you make, it is an epidemic of fraud. There's no two ways about that. And perhaps one of the things we could all do collectively is do everything that we can to stop, as you say, the shame of the scam. There's no shame in it. People need to be enabled to talk about that. So for clarity of the picture, and then some more robust responses can be put in place.
Exactly.
So moving forward a bit into the future, the optimal open banking, open finance everywhere, if you will. How do we get there?
Gosh, big question, but we're starting to get the pieces in place to enable this to happen. Notwithstanding it takes time, but we need to move at pace, but we have to get it right. And we can, I'm interested, you know, in Helen's comments on Brazil, and it's really interesting looking around the globe to see what's happened. We have to do it at pace, but we have to get it right. You know, you can't have financial transaction services that mess up, because you lose trust and it's gone. You've lost the moment. So we have to get this right. I think the vision is to, you know, we need to do all the things we're doing now under the J-Rock report. We have to do it. We're already running into some challenges, and this is, what is this, month 2 or something. So we really have to get this to work. And I think one thing that I would ask of the audience is this, you know, participating in what way you're asked to participate as providing data. If we can't get the data, then we need to understand what we do about that. It isn't about, you know, invading companies. Privacy, it's about all leaning in and trying to make this thing work. And to do that, there will be requests across the industry for help and support, and we need to do that. The key thing here, in my opinion, and from the last 5 months, is we need to get it all working. Then what we need to do, and there's a future entity working group, Henk sits on that, as do many players across the industry. What will the entity look like? I don't really mind what the corporate structure is, as long as it's well governed and we have an appropriate governance framework. But we have to protect the order. We have to ensure that the trust framework is there and works really effectively. We have to have a standard setting body. We have to agree all of the standards, because it has to be interoperable as we move to an open data everywhere. You know, I respect and understand the different elements in the different industries, but it has to be interoperable. We need a standard setting body of standards, in effect, to make sure that we've got that consistency and that interoperability. So we have to have that in place. Trust framework in place, regulatory framework in place. We have to have the powers, which the DPID bill is putting in place, but they have to be used. They have to be used to enable us to get the information to move forward. We also need a scheme. Now, we recognise schemes from different payment types, etc., and schemes can take many forms. For me, a trust framework, a standards framework, set the standards, set the level. The scheme is the rules of the game, the rules of participation. What do members and participants need to conform to be part of this? What is the pricing model? How is this funded? How does the economic model work? That all needs to be in place, because we will not survive beyond another 18 months if we do not have an economic model that works, so that the functionality of open banking, protecting it, growing it, delivering all the things we need to deliver, is funded and paid for. And it goes way beyond the CMA9, of course it does, but it has to be fair and equitable, and it has to support innovation and business models, not damage them by being too expensive to use or too difficult to access. And so we learn from schemes, current schemes, and what's happened in the past, but this is different. This isn't one set of rails, this is open. So we have to think that through really carefully, and it's not there at the moment.
Sure, and finally, as you rightly touched on it, what are you seeing internationally which is of interest in this space?
Gosh, there's lots happening, and it's what you read. Is what you read the reality? I'm not sure, because I've not been to all those countries recently. But for me, it's not really a race. It's about getting it right. And what we've built here in the UK, with Charlotte and Charlotte's predecessors and the team here, and there's many members of the CMA9 here, and regulators, probably not as many here, but this has been great work, and it's a model that's being looked at around the world. And I know that PSD3 is pretty much there now and being looked at how we're doing things, etc. For me, probably 3 of the standout ones, and picking up on Brazil, speed, moving quickly, centralised model, government and regulators working together. The regulators own a lot of the function, or run a lot of the functionality, so a very much tighter centralised model. Interesting. I don't think that's going to happen here, and probably shouldn't, but it's moving at a pace. I would put out Australia, who've been at this some time now, but I think the experience in Australia is they started wide. They started with, I wouldn't say open everything, but certainly a data sharing economy. They started with telcos and utilities and financial services. And I think now they're having to rein it in because it's just too difficult. Not saying they're failing, I don't think they are, but it's tricky to get all of these frameworks in place cross-industry, because different industries have their own way of doing things. What we need is that sort of interoperability. So Australia are now starting to rethink some of the things they're doing. And I guess the third one might be India. Completely different culture, different demographic, and they started with digital identity, which is interesting, isn't it? Because it's one of those use cases that we have. They've started with it. Now, maybe that's important because of the scale of the population and the challenges in managing that, but that's where they started, and it was mandated. So government there with the powers and implemented them so really from the get-go. So that's really interesting. Now, all of these models have started from a different place, are making different decisions as they go through, but isn't that great? Because we can learn from each other. And and organisations like OBE and others that work globally, bringing that information together in a safe place where we can all talk about it, I think is incredibly valuable. There's not a right way, there's probably a lot of wrong ways, there are many right ways, and we're coming at it at different stages. And I think also, having worked in banking and in the whole infrastructure of banking for many years, different countries have different levels of legacy and different levels of change and different levels of complexity. And that will also have a major influence on speed.
For sure, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you'd agree that's an excellent overview of the landscape. Let's give Mary a big round of applause. stay with us, but let's invite up some more panellists. So Sheldon Mills, Sam Seaton, and Paul Stoddart. So, Sheldon, I understand you've been chairing a lending. You say lending. Excellent. This is good. You've had a good day, but the night is just beginning. So, J-Rock, how do we gather folks around this? How do we plot the path forward? Give us your perspective.
Okay, so I'm code switching today. Those of you who are black or mixed race know what code switching is, but I'm not code switching between races, I'm just code switching between areas of financial services. If I start talking about savings or mortgages, I apologise. But there is a real link between those discussions that I've been having today in relation to savings and this debate, or this discussion, or this progress, or this project. And that is that millions of people out there, don't have any savings actually, let's be clear, and struggle to save. So let's start there. What can open banking, open finance do for them? And they are multiple millions. Well, it can help them make healthy financial choices and think about how they budget. It can give them tools which look across all of their financial products and services, look at the data on their spending, and provide them even with automaticity in terms of helping them save and have that financial resiliency that this economy and this country desperately needs. So, you know, what we discuss here and what you're all doing is not theoretical, it's real, and it's urgent, desperately urgent and important, and it links very much to those conversations that I've been having today. And for those of us who are very, very fortunate to be able to have any additional disposable income that we can either save or that we already have, yes, this work can also provide you with opportunities as competition starts to drive, and as base rates, to be perfectly honest, but competition starts to flow into that base rate environment and drives a swathe of different savings opportunities, which are different and complex and varied, and can meet lots of different needs of different individuals at different points in their life and their financial health journeys. It is the people in this room that have the products and services that can actually help support them through those journeys. So it's quite interesting that you mentioned what I've been doing all day and all week, because what I always find when we're in crisis, the pandemic was the same, is that the opportunity is there for people to actually, and the tools are there, the data is there, the tools are there, the opportunity is there, and sometimes I sort of sit there and go, wouldn't it be great if everybody was signed up to open banking now and we had all of that data shared? Because, you know, the efficient allocation of people's choices into products which could really help them would really drive both support to people through a cost of living crisis and also drive support in this economy to businesses, small businesses and others who are going to struggle. Anyway, what's J-Rock doing? So hopefully at pace, because I've just said that the prize is great, hopefully at pace we've set out, as Marion has said, what the roadmap is. And our role, you know, let's be clear, I'm very honest about this on the video, I don't have any powers. You know, I mean, we've set up the J-Rock. I know you don't like that, but I mean, you know, it is, we've got a CMA order, residual powers evidently, but you know, effectively we are trying to motivate industry to look for commercial incentives to take what is a brilliant and ingenious order from the Competition Markets Authority into something which is not the CMA 9 paying for absolutely everything and funding it, and into something which is more commercial and has legs and is sustainable and can reach those advantages. You know, Chris and I, Sam's the payment systems regulator, and I chair the J-Rock. That means we turn up to meetings and chair it. Chris does quite a lot, actually. I turn up and chat, but I mean, there's a great team who do great work. But we have, through the strategic working group, which I know many people, wrote letters to me about the pace and how well it was doing, but I think it did a very good job of summarising what you were all thinking, and that helped us. And we have to have validity in terms of things that we move forward on. That helped us crystallise what the plan was, and you see the benefit of that work in that plan. There are, you mentioned the 6 work streams, but I think there are 29 actual recommendations and possible work streams, and we have 6 of them flowing through, and that's part of the challenge that we're taking forward. The 2 which the FCA and the PSR have sort of kept to themselves, so to speak, doesn't sound right, does it? Are the design of the future entity. So how do we actually work through from that CMA9 design into something which has greater participation, has greater sharing of liability and funding, and has a sensible governance and corporate structure which allows for the open banking project and can basically link into something which looks like open finance and beyond. What does that look like? So that's something which I think the FCA is leading, the PSR is leading, we're both sort of working together on variable recurring payments in that project, and many of you here are involved in that. And that is there to sort of provide some commercial impetus into open banking to allow for there to be something for us to fight on as we move forward. But there are many other projects around it, and I'll say one more thing and then let others speak. But Marion, you mentioned sort of what do we need to do to realise the ambition of open finance? And there's lots of different jurisdictions around the world. I'm not sure I agree, Helen, completely about, but we'll come on to the international, people talk about Brazil and India and other places. I don't know why I'm in UK PLC mode this week, but let's celebrate that there's like 7 million people who've signed up to open banking, and there's new users coming on stream all the time. I mean, that's fascinating. There's a country which doesn't even have ID cards, willing to just open up their data to all of you lot. I mean, that's like well, unless you're the bank who are giving you that data. I mean, that's incredible. And it's growing. It's not actually decreasing, and it's not just individuals. Massive numbers of small businesses as well. 750,000. I mean, and it's growing. So we're kind of there. There's a sort of, we have a lot of things to do, but there is a project which is just moving along at pace whilst we are doing things to make that excellent. And I think that's a good thing. And when I did the piece of work on open finance, the things which we recommended there are similar to the things that JROC had recommended and the things that you have highlighted, Marion, which will help us in the future. And that is the right sort of consent frameworks, the right sort of trust-based and ethics-based frameworks. Those sorts of things we were already highlighting 4 years ago as things that would be at the bedrock, the right commercial incentives to provide. So we know sort of theoretically what we need to solve for. We know the problems that we just need the participation and the collaboration. So a collective noun for a regulator is probably the same as a collective noun for politicians, but the one which I want you to take away now is that we're collaborators with you. If you believe that, then goodness knows what. But I mean, I do think that there is an opportunity to almost lose some of those collective nouns, lose the roles, and to work together in pursuance of this goal. And there will be a time, obviously, when we go back to the collective noun, and you can detest us again when we phone you up and enforce against you, right? I'll come. But right now, we're all in this together, and we want to get to that ultimate prize. I'll leave it there.
No, while I've got you just briefly, it's interesting, when you're in those other environments, of which there are several for you, how often does open banking come up? And what's the general tone of those sort of conversations and comments?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that. That when I was interviewed this afternoon on savings, I didn't plug open banking or anything of that like or data, which says to me it's not front of mind, right? I'll be honest. I'm always honest. I mean, it's too honest sometimes. It's recorded, but it's not always front of mind in those conversations. We at the FCA. Have it as part of our improving digital markets, one of our 13 strategic commitments, and it sits within our improving digital markets and competition and positive change. What's interesting is when will it sit in the architecture of just day-to-day delivery of products and services? And I think where this sort of fits for me is that you do hear sometimes in the halls of directors in Stratford people talking about the opportunity of open banking and our new consumer duty, which obviously does ask firms to produce a higher standard of care for customers. And I think where they're thinking there is, well, how do we expect that to be a sort of a data outcomes-based approach? So what are the tools? You always look for tools to solve problems or to meet the ambitions that you have, and people then say, well, open banking, and then they say, well, wait a minute, supervised firm, is it on the front of your app? Is it, are you properly promoting it? Are you keeping up with the connection? So I think we have to keep flying the flag for it. I don't think that's always the responsibility of the regulator, but the reflection of myself internally is it's the same that you probably face internally or within your own organisations, that sometimes people forget. I think the way that we change that, Chris, is you turn it from a cost into something which looks more like a profit centre, or at the very least, a profit opportunity. When we get that right, and that's the heart of some of what the JROC needs to do, then of course it's front of mind, or it's just BAU.
Brilliant. Thank you for now. You mentioned the consumer duty. Sam, welcome. Many interesting things happening in your part of this world at the moment. Consumer duty, the data protection bill. How are you seeing the path forward? And as Marion mentioned, good things happen in Australia. It's great that Sam, as an Aussie, is doing great things here. Yay!
Yes, well, I guess I have to step forward on that and say I don't think we here in the UK, with my UK hat on, can say we should slow down, because otherwise you're going to end up in the same situation as you ended up with a lot of other things like Wimbledon, the Ashes. They're all brilliant. You did them brilliantly, but you're not actually there.
It was all going so well. Cut the fees, cut the fees.
So you invent these things, you set the world up. 167 countries are embracing open banking off the back of your work. And there's only 195 countries in the world. And of the 167, some are market driven, some are regulation driven. But what I would say is, if we stand still, I don't like your chances. And to be fair, I mean, I applaud you for consumer duty, but I am upset with it. Like, we shouldn't need consumer duty. Of all the regulation we need, open data bill, we need it, because without that, I'm telling you, none of those investment houses are giving up their customers' data over their dead bodies. I mean, they really generally feel like they own that data. So without regulation, I don't think we can push the consumers' ownership of their data, forwards. I think we do need that. But consumer duty, I'm very upset that we need, because I can't understand how financial services isn't putting the customer first. I mean, I actually don't get it. But it's great that we've got it, because I think it has motivated the industry to lift its game, is the word I'd use.
Just bring it to life a little bit. How's the moving off the sport for a little bit? We'll come back to it. Obviously, the great good fortune that we have in England, no matter who wins the Ashes, they still stay in the long room. It's a very English solution.
I think you did invent it, so it's okay.
But on the data bill, just to bring it to life for people who may be less aware, how will that benefit everything we're trying to do here?
So I think the biggest win for us with data and technology is, to Sheldon's point, we can reach people that traditionally we couldn't reach with any commercial savviness about it. So the opportunity for all businesses, no matter what they do, whether they lend, they save, they do mortgages, insurance, critical illness, it doesn't really matter what you do. I think what open banking, open data and technology enables is for us in any of those businesses to use scale to reach an entire mass market that we couldn't service before in a profitable manner. And that is the bit that I think we are slightly struggling with businesses, to get them to see that actually, yes, traditionally you have made your P&Ls work in this way, but actually the size of the prize for you as a business is massive. And on top of that, the reach for all those products and services for the mass market, right through to people that traditionally you would have thought were not someone you could actually reach in your model. And that's the bit I think we've really got to really shift. So, I think I spoke here, last time I said that we're all going to fall off our chairs, and genuinely we're going to fall off our chairs when our product providers tell us about other products they've got that are good for us and that we should consider. I mean, have any of you ever had a text or a nudge from a product provider, a mortgage provider, or a saving cash ISA? It doesn't really matter what it is. Wait till you get a nudge saying, do you know what, we might have a better cash ISA for you, or a better savings product actually, or you've been saving in this product for 12 months and you've not taken any money out. Do you know we've got this 12-month fixed term product with an extra 2%? You might be interested. You might not. It doesn't matter. But guess what? Is somebody going to know about it? I will fall off. I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait.
Were you at the meeting?
No. I am waiting.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Paul, welcome. And I didn't think we'd be continuing the cricketing analogy, but there's been a review into non-sweeping. It just happens. It's just brilliant. It just keeps giving. The whole question of VRP and the task force there looking at the autumn. How do you see all that? How's progress? How's that looking from your perspective?
Having also been watching the cricket intently initially and less so since the last one, I think we've had one meeting. So first of all, I'm very pleased that Go Cardless is part of the group. We've had one meeting. As a lot of these things go, the first meeting is kind of deciding what order of things will be tackled, getting the key sort of things to tackle on the table, and so I think that the sort of initial steps are use case identification. I think the focus probably initially will be on the lower risk use cases, which probably makes sense. And I think one of the key elements that I know was discussed, and I'm pleased to hear everyone refer to in some way today, is the need for a commercial incentive model around it. It's not an easy time for fintech businesses in the market at the moment, nor is it for many people, consumers obviously as well. And the open banking community has relied quite heavily on the fintech space to drive the innovation and bring products to market. And just by me saying that, I think therefore it's fairly obvious that there isn't that much money being invested in the space because there isn't a lot of money around for those businesses to invest in the space. What makes it harder is if the commercial incentive model is unclear. And so I'm really pleased to hear that that's on everybody's minds, that there needs to be a commercial incentive model that incentivizes businesses to be willing to invest often other people's money in developing products and services for the benefit of all of us. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think it's a very important one, and I think that needs to be part of the conversation. So I would give ourselves a B, maybe, to start with. Good start, things are off and running. There's there's generally a good level of collaboration and there's generally a good level of agreement about what we need to do. The proof will be in the pudding, and the rubber really hits the road, I think, when the commercial model is clear.
Very well put. Right, we're a bit tight on time. This is what we're going to do. Bear with me. I'm going to ask the panel a quick question. We're going to the line, but while I'm doing that, if there's a couple of questions from the audience, if you indicate and get a microphone to you, then we'll come to a couple of questions from the audience, then we'll wrap up, and then you can have even more bubbles. And for those of you who pretend to have soft drinks, you can continue having the soft drinks. Yeah, right. And the quick question which is going to go down the line to everybody is, what one ask would you have of government, parliamentarians, or the people in the room? One ask to really add to the pace and the turbocharging of this. Marion?
Make sure the powers are used and engage heavily.
Perfect. Sheldon? You did. I noticed it was okay. You did it beautifully. Sheldon?
So I think we will need some sort of regulatory framework to assist with the development of open banking and open finance.
Excellent. Sam?
Get the open data bill done and dusted.
Great, that's one for me. Thank you. Got it?
Be proud of what we're achieving and have achieved, I think. There's a lot going on around the world, but everyone does look to the UK. And so, we do lead the way in a number of things here, and we should be proud of that and talk about that.
Brilliant. We've got a couple of quick questions. I'll take them both. We haven't got them to the panel. Questions? Excellent.
And yes, we should be incredibly proud, because everybody does look to the UK, as I said at the beginning, for leadership and direction. I've got a question. Interoperability. I've just come back from LATAM, and there are 9 countries talking about that. What's everybody's sort of view, and what do we need to do to lead the way globally? Because I believe we are that A-star student.
Brilliant. Great question. Marion?
Make sure the standards are clear, make sure they're set, make sure they're regulated well, and then export that. And we need to make sure that we are interoperable. We set up the pensions dashboard, different standard. We shouldn't really be doing that. I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just saying, let us get joined up and make sure we get that data sharing, smart data economy, and then export it with confidence.
Brilliant.
Leverage our position and collaborate.
Sheldon?
Yeah, so I think it links to the ask. So the Smart Data Council, those bills, we require them to set up not just an enabling framework, but to also think about what the standards and frameworks consistently will be, and then that not just aids interoperability between one part of financial services and another. It enables interoperability across aspects of the economy and data across the economy, and I think that's really important. If we can fix that in the UK, then that really is a good standard to show internationally.
Oh, well, I would say we just need to make it work. Consumers actually just want it to work. I'm not really sure they're that bothered about interoperability, but when they use it, trust me, with our direct customer base, we hear the noise from them, and they're very bright, extremely astute, know exactly what they want. They get very upset when it doesn't work, and they're quite switched on about why it doesn't work too.
Yeah, I just follow on that theme. We have about 80,000 merchants who go cardless. At the moment, most of them think it doesn't work properly, and they're not really going to spend much time trying to use it until they believe that there's confidence in it working properly. Despite the great things around customer experience, whether that's the reality or not, that's what they believe. And so we've got a bit of a job of convincing them that it does work, and therefore that we've got something that's worth interoperating with.
Paul, Sam, Sheldon, Marion, thank you. Let's give a massive round of applause for our panel.